appreciate the opportunity to visit with y'all this morning.
I think Dr. Bowling, you had an idea of how to get this started. So why don't you jump into how to how to how to get our audience acquainted with Mitchell?
Sure. So Mitchell, you're on here. We've got two extension specialists and a county extension agent. We probably have a lot of folks that may not be as familiar with extension as those of us that are on this meeting. Could you start by helping to orient our audience with what is a county extension agent? What does your job, look like? And I know specifically you have a commercial horticulture focus. If you could talk a little bit about that as well.
No, I'll do my best. So, extension and extension agent is for whatever university you're associated with. River Land Grant University, they conduct extension programs in their state. And so the county agent is the representative of that university in the county. In Tennessee, every county has an extension office. So there's at least one agricultural agent in every county. Some have more than that, but there's at least one in every county. And so as the face of or representative of the university there, then we county agents function as as a conduit to help this information that you folks, you specialists, the scientists there at the various research centers and so on across the state that you make those discoveries and whatnot. We help get that out to the folks that are going to use it, the end user. So our job is education. That's basically what we do. Our tagline is real life solutions. And I mean, we try to be problem solvers as much as possible. And the big part of, I think, of every county agent's job across Tennessee, is answering questions, sometimes very simple questions, easy to answer. For example, yesterday a fellow walked in, he's got a little jar, he got a bug in the jar. What is this? It's a bed bug. He found a bed bug in his daughter's bed. Things like that. But a lot of times, the questions have to do with is my tree going to die? Well, I learned a long time ago that the answer to that is always yes. Now, we don't win necessarily, but yeah, at some point it's going to die. Well, they want to know, what can I do to prolong life of the tree, things like that. So as county agents, that's what we do. We do a lot of visits with clientele, both homeowners, like consumer horticulture related, is production agriculture also. Now here in Rutherford County, Tennessee, at one time we were the number one dairy county in the state, but I think there's one left, and that's operated by the Middle Tennessee State University here. So we are growing a lot more houses than we are corn and soybeans and alfalfa. So our conventional commercial agriculture, production agriculture audience has really changed a lot. We still have some here, but not to the extent that we had the consumer horticulture related things. So along with this big consumer audience, and just to give you an idea, I started 42 years ago in Rutherford County. So the population of the county then was 80 some odd thousand folks. So it's doubled twice since I've been here. So we're estimated right now over 360,000 for the county, and anticipate getting 500,000 here within a few years. So that a lot of houses being built and folks moving into these houses. So there's been a great increase in the number of service companies that are out there trying to help take care of those properties for people. And so that created an opportunity for us to provide some education for the lawn care operators, landscape service operators, to maintain their state mandated pesticide certification and licensing through their continuing education. So we have a pretty good focus on that. We've been doing those here in the county. I guess this will be the 22nd year that we've had that going on. So, that's, I guess to boil it down, what does the county need to do? We'll answer questions a lot of times, visit with people a lot, listen to find out, so the question you ask, is that really what you want to know? Or what's the, what is it you really want to learn? Yes, and that's try to figure that out, and then try to provide, no evidence-based information. It's based in science. It's based in fact, and not some not some formula or recipe that you got off the chat room or off of Facebook or something.
It's
I think
probably
that's
more important today more than ever, right? I heard
right.
There's a
Mitchell,
lot.
I heard a metaphor once by I can't take credit. Our colleague Brandon Horvath was the one who shared this, and I thought it was pretty appropriate that he kind of described the extension agent. It's almost like you're the general practitioner, right? When you go to the doctor, you go see the general practitioner, and they're going to give you a full diagnostic overview to the best of their ability. And if there's something that's really complicated, that's kind of outside of the realm of what they usually work on, then they bring in a specialist like Dr. Bowling or our special guest here to join us today, Dr. Bumgardner.
That's a perfect analogy, I think. That's a great way to describe it, because we county agents, boy, you know, I'm retiring on May 1. And so there have been lots of mornings I'd wake up and wonder, is this the day? Meaning, is this the day that the folks in administration figure out I'm not smart enough to do this? And I promise you, we certainly do rely on specialists like the three of you here. You help make it possible for county agents to function out in the field, and we are very appreciative of that.
Well, and to go full kumbaya, it goes both ways, right? Because like you're the eyes and ears out in the field that helps relay information back to us to design better projects and better teaching materials and whatnot to kind of make the engine go. So it's definitely a symbiotic relationship in that regard.
Well, and I think I want to make sure too that we explain there's a reason that we invited Mitchell specifically. Like we have so many wonderful agents across the state. And what I would say is that a lot of our agents, they tend to gravitate toward they're generalists, but they tend to gravitate a lot of times towards a particular area. And Mitchell, you are a mega turf enthusiast. Yes. And so that's why we really wanted to have you on. So much of your programming, so much of your initiatives, and so much of your passion has been really funneled into turf for much of your career. And I don't know if you want to speak a little bit more about that, maybe talk about the demonstrations that you have at the Rutherford County office and where your love of turf came from.
So I grew up on a little farm in Lawrence County, Tennessee. That's down southern middle Tennessee. Lawrence County is on the Alabama state line, and grade beef dairy farm. And if there was an opportunity to use any equipment that would turn gasoline into noise, I like that. Any kind of machinery that had a motor on it, I like that. So my favorite was plowing, anything sitting on a tractor seat. Now, we didn't have a lawn, and the people I grew up with didn't have lawns. We had yards, and our lawn care, our yard care consisted of mowing that yard. Now, mowing often fell to me, and I didn't mind mowing so bad because I got to use a piece of equipment to turn gasoline into noise, and to take some satisfaction of watching as you mow back and forth. You're seeing progress along. And that was not as good as sitting on the tractor seat, I guess, but it was better than, hoeing Johnson grass in corn, for example. But that's kind of, I liked mowing grass or mowing what we had, because, again, we didn't have lawns. We fertilizer in the yard. You never even thought about that, because fertilizer went in the field. You to put that in the yard. But went to school, and 2 summers, towards the last 2 years, when I was in college, I got a job with the local country club. They were working there on the golf course, and they let me mow. I got to sit on a tractor, so that was good. They let me mow fairways and roughs. Mowing the fairways had a big old wide, gang. I don't know how many units in this gang reel mower. And got to looking and said, dang, this grass is kind of neat. I didn't know there was so many different kinds of grass, or that you could tend to it in different ways. And that's sort of what really piqued my interest, I guess, in turf to start with. And then, graduated from school, had to spend a little time in the service, and then got first job, and along the way built a house or bought a house, and had to establish a yard there alone. And so that started my experience with lawn care, genuine lawn care, lawn establishment, maintaining turf, okay, actually growing grass. And when I started, it still is today. Tall fescue is the primary lawn grass, the most used lawn grass here, in my part of the world. And then Kentucky 31 tall fescue was used a lot. Probably turf type tall fescues, as I recall, were just kind of coming on the scene. Rebel, I believe, was the one I can remember. Uh, uh, Shortly thereafter, I started working, but. So I made my first yard, first lawn, and intended to it, and I learned why there are mowing heights and why you need to follow those directions, because closer is always better. Closer typically is never better, especially for fescue and weed live. So that kind of got that started, and then as opportunity arose to visit with clientele, start getting questions from clientele about lawns and weeds growing in the yard and so on. And so did took turf management class as a graduate student at the Middle Tennessee State University. Well, I had to do a project to get my graduate credit for that. And so well, how about, because at that time there were some more turf type tall fescues coming on the scene, and well, how about we create some plots and just measure these things, evaluate them in some way. I mean, I don't know what I was doing, but the teacher, he allowed, this boy ain't gonna hurt anybody, I guess, so we'll even do it. So went out and developed I think we had a dozen plots, and had some Kentucky 31 in it, and some Rebel, and some, oh gosh, I remember Genesis was one, and I don't remember what I was in there. And I mean, I just really like doing that. And it was fascinating to me to see the differences in those grasses, they're all the same species, but differences, and how they responded and the way they grew and so on. So that sort of got that part of it started. So I don't know, 20 some odd years ago, when we relocated our office, we were located in what's called Old Fort Park in Murfreesboro at that time. And so we had some turf plots there, and kind of built on those as new varieties came on. And what I'm trying to focus on in those demonstration plots that we established there at the extension office over here at the Rutherford County Extension Office were those that folks are going to find when they go into the garden center. What's on the shelf, what are you out to see? And the idea was it would give people an opportunity to see what they were buying before they bought it. That was kind of the idea. So we moved to, we were very fortunate and received the Lane Agri Park, that's where we're located today. I moved in here in 2003. And that year established, we had a lot of property around here, so we put in a turf demonstration that year, actually in the spring of 2004. Put in a turf demonstration, and that's kind of grown over the years. We've got cool season grasses, warm season grasses. We've got some St. Augustine grass there. We've got Bermuda grass, zoysia grass, seeded, as well as vegetating propagated varieties. And I don't know, 30 some odd, I guess, individual plots out there right now. So that's how I got to that point. And I've been able to use it for a lot of things. We will have we'll do a lawn care academy typically every year, just for homeowners, interested people, and able to use that turf demonstration period, so folks can see what we're talking about when we talk about a creeping grass versus a bunch grass, and the difference between the zoysia grass and Bermuda grass and so on. And they can walk on those things and see those characteristics. And well, it's also a great place for weed identification and for weed control demonstrations. We've done those over the years. Had some field days out there just for citizens, for local people. So it's been a good education tool for us here.
That's awesome. And I think I'll just add to this, just for our listeners, that we have actually several demonstrations across the state. So in Murfreesboro at the Rutherford County office, that's probably our most extensive. But we also have fabulous turf wheels in Shelby County and Memphis. And our Shelby County agent is also a commercial horticulture agent, Joe Sego. He's actually an audience member today. I see him in there. We also have a turf wheel in Jackson at our West Tennessee Research and Education Center. We have a turf demonstration in Cumberland County at the Plateau Center that we're looking to renovate this year. And then we also have turf at our UT Gardens here, as well as our research farm here. So a lot of turf across the state for folks to visit across the different regions. So if you're ever curious about that, don't hesitate to reach out to one of us or one of your county agents. Um, so Mitchell, now that Natalie's joined us, and Natalie, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself real quick and share with the audience who you are.
Yeah, I'm happy to be on here this morning. I'm Natalie Baumgartner. I am both Jim and Becky's colleague in the plant sciences department, but my area of horticulture is primarily consumer horticulture. So while they have the opportunity really to work with Mitchell in more commercial and landscape services audience, I get to see Mitchell be an amazing educator and communicator with the consumer clientele. So I actually think that one of the coolest things that our GPs are, very talented agents do is kind of bridge that space between our commercial and our consumer audiences because they're working with both of them on a literally daily basis.
Yeah, I agree. And I think maybe something that could be interesting to talk about. So I feel like, when you have an audience like this, you have maybe two groups, right? You have a group that has almost no familiarity with extension, and then you have a group that is maybe familiar with the most conventional definition of extension. And I think, all of us on this chat, we've increasingly had these conversations sort of to piggyback off of what Mitchell said. The state is changing, right? Our core audience is changing. And that also means like us in extension, and particularly maybe on the horticulture side, how we develop our programs and who we're working with, that's evolving. And so I don't know if we want to, Mitchell, if you want to expand a little bit on like how the audience is changing, how you see extension evolving with that across the state. And Natalie and I and Jim can chime in a little as well.
So from my perspective, I guess, things I've seen change in regard to home lawns, and that's, primarily what we're talking about here in this county, in Rutherford County. I've seen Bermuda grass, for example, being used more frequently than there was before. That has been a very common question from clientele over the years. Boy, I have Bermuda grass creeping in from my neighbor. How can I fight that? And boy, one of my first recommendations is, well, instead of fighting it, I think y'all learn to like it. That life would just be a lot simpler for you. Because we all know it's very difficult. I don't know that you ever kill it. You may fight to a draw. You may reach a truce somewhere, but you don't eradicate it. I mean, there's so many. Like, not only is our demographic changing, our audience changing, but it seems that maybe the seasons are changing, and we're having longer summers. And like September now is more kind of, maybe September is just an extension of August a little bit. Maybe October is a little more like what September used to be. I don't know. I don't have any data on that, but it's just a perception. But anyway, there's a lot of people that would be much better off by using Bermuda grass in the first place. So, we're seeing, especially on new installations, more Bermuda grass than ever before. Well, and the cool season grass is still the most common, but it's because we will buy the seed for it more readily, and folks can do that themselves. And it's cheaper to establish versus sod, I guess. But we're seeing more and more Bermuda grass being used like that. I also think that the majority, I'm going to say the majority of the population, our population here, do take care of their own yards, but there has been an increase in the number of individuals that have what I'm going to call, higher end lawns, and they're using services. Property values have gone up tremendously. Now it's amazing. I was talking to my wife, and I said, based on what the assessments tell us, me and you, we couldn't have bought our house today if we couldn't afford to do that. But some of these neighborhoods are being built, and we're getting 7-figure houses out there that we never had before. And so we've got higher end stuff there, and so a lot of lawn care services. And those folks in the higher end lawns, they expect higher end service, and so how that generate, or that creates an opportunity then for those service operators to get to know their county extension agent, because they're looking for ways to maybe apply a little grease to those squeaky wheels from those neighborhoods where they have the higher end lawns. And they look sometimes how, you know, how should I talk to this customer? You know, they have this situation. Here's what they want. Realistically, can we do anything about that? That provides a really good opportunity for us to have a dialogue to help educate educate them as to how to talk to the customer. Not about everything, but about some things that we can be. I think provide a good be a good resource for them to help them better communicate, you know, realistic expectations and what kind of expectations, you know, should you relay to your clientele, you know, what is reasonable. You know, like we were talking before this thing started this morning. When you scraped all the soil away, you have just what used to be subsoil now is your topsoil, and it's only 3 inches deep. You know, and you buy zoysia grass sod, and you pay a good price for it, and you put it down, and it starts to turn brown in places. Well, why is it turning brown? And you go visit that site, and you take a soil probe, and you can only go 2 inches, 3 inches deep before you hit solid rock. Well, here's why. Is it realistic to think that you're going to grow grass, maintain a real good population of grass there without great, I mean, realistically, can you do it? Is it feasible to do that? I guess you throw enough money at it, you can make it happen, but it's not sustainable in that respect. And so we, you know, I think we are able to provide, you know, a service, and what Dr. Bumgarner mentioned, being that conduit between the commercial side and the consumer side. I think that shows up as a real potential right there. You know, other changes, and boy, there's been a lot of, especially the do-it-yourself folks. You know, and again, I think the majority of people are tending to their own yards, and they don't necessarily. I mean, you just drive around, you understand, folks don't mind a few dandelions. Okay, there's some don't mind a lot of dandelions, but there are those segments or those folks in that audience that are looking for, you know, a moderately good yard, a medium quality. And there are, you know, more do-it-yourself products available, especially from a weed control standpoint, than there used to be. A lot of combination products where you'll have, you know, your broadleaf weed control as well as some grass weed control, as well as pre-emerge, all packaged together. And folks are looking to, you know, make the right choice there, and looking for recommendations on, you know, what is this weed that I have here? What's my target? And then, you know, what kind of a product can I use to control that? And not necessarily that they want to have, you know, just to totally eradicate a population, but they want to have more grass than they have weeds. You know, pre-emerge products. There are more pre-emerges available. I mean, when I started, I think Baleen and pendimethalin were kind of the two options out there. But, you know, there's been an increase in the number of those with the Dimension product, the 5-P. You know, that's available. And especially on the commercial side, they've got things. You know, Spectacle, for example, as a good POA pre-emerge product that, you know, years ago it wasn't out there. And even, you know, we're talking about suppressing Bermuda grass. I mentioned that earlier. Well, I mean, you got some chemistry today that will let you do that without destroying tall fescue if you're committed enough to follow the program. That's it. So those are some changes, I guess, that I've seen. I don't know if I answered the question or not. I'll be honest with you, I forgot what the question was.
This is interesting. And as you're talking, I was literally just thinking about something Jim shared with me about his lawn transition during COVID and his decision to roll over fully to Bermuda.
Yeah, I love your punt example, Mitchell. Like, I can remember I moved into my house in 2019, and it was maybe 60% tall fescue and 40% common Bermuda grass. And, you know, COVID came, and, well, everybody was at home, right? So I said, hey, we're going to get rid of this tall fescue. We're going to put out some fertilizer. I don't have a tree in my yard shade-wise. We're going to grow us some Bermuda grass. And now it's 100% Bermuda grass lawn, and works really nicely. It's the only Bermuda grass lawn in the neighborhood, so I'm sure all my tall fescue neighbors love it. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a case to be made for warm season lawns for sure, particularly lawns that don't have irrigation, which is most of them. And then I think there's another component that's not talked about enough, is that, I mean, just, you know, N equals 1 here through my own lens. I haven't mowed my lawn since October, right? And probably won't mow it until easily the end of April or early May. And that's just to get kind of the dormant canopy off. And some sunlight down in there to get things moving. I think that reduction in mowing requirements is probably another advantage again that's not talked about on the warm season front.
When we have our lawn care academy here, that's one of the, I mean, that is a selling point that I'll use for warm season turf. You got a shorter mowing season. And, folks say, well, it goes dormant. I said, okay, think about this. Think about this. One of the measures of quality, I guess, of turf is uniformity of color, a consistent color. And I said, when that Bermuda grass turns brown, it's uniformly brown, and brown is a color. So if you're looking for uniformity, boy, you can't hardly beat that. And plus, you got a way shorter mowing season.
Well,
That's
that
right.
and the weed management, in my
Oh
opinion,
my
the weed
gosh,
management's
way
way
different.
easier than it is in a fescue situation. Way easier. And that's not to, knock the fescues of the world, because I think that those cultivars have dramatically improved over time, as many of our cool season grasses have. It's, kind of an exercise, and just kind of like, I think you alluded to it, Mitchell, like, what do you want to get out of your yard? Right?
What
Like,
are your expectations? Be realistic.
what's your objective? And I think as the state has become more urban, there's a need for extension expertise more than ever. And I think one of our challenges is to kind of raise that awareness. And I know, Natalie, you've done a really good job with the homeowner side with your Welcome Home initiative to try to get extension material in people's hands when they buy a property, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it's kind of balancing that. What do you want to get out? What are you willing to put in? And how does that fit with this new place that you live? I always smile when Jim's lived more places than I have, but Tennessee's the warmest place I ever lived. So like in some ways I'm similar to some of our move-ins that like I grew up with cool season grasses. And so, we come down here and we may not have realistic expectations at all. And so I think that a lot of what Mitchell was saying about, well, you know, what about Bermudas and just rolling with that? And how does that fit, with your overall management style and with your management plan? And how does that correspond to the rest of your landscape? Because I think from the horticulture side, I love turf grass, but I'm not that great at it, right? So I'm stronger, with the food crops and with the ornamental crops. And I think that having programs like Welcome Home, which will tell you a little bit about, yeah, is really a welcome to Tennessee. These are the elements of your landscape. You want to grow food? Let's talk about that. What about your lawn? Let's talk about that. You want to, what's in your landscape bed? What are the trees? And really integrating our education so that, turfgrass management isn't over here and vegetable gardening isn't over here, but these are all linked decision, making topics. And Mitchell was a great presenter on that series to kind of share his knowledge and experience with turfgrass.
Another thing that occurred to me, what has changed, and this by far is not the majority, but 20 years ago, I didn't know that lawns were bad. I had no idea that lawns were bad. But you can, depending on what publications you read and so on. I mean, you'll see headlines. Lawns are bad. Lawns are not. They're bad for the environment, and so on and so on. So there's there's been kind of a shift, I guess, in a certain segment of the population that view turfgrass lawns as being bad for the environment. They're a monoculture with lots of inputs into it that maybe should be used somewhere else. That ground should be better suited for doing something else. And I think a lot of it is the problem, the dangers, the bad aspects are overstated and I think exaggerated in a lot of it, in some instances. So I think out of that, then I see more people that have an interest in an alternative to lawn, an alternative ground cover that it's not going to look real snaky and so on. And that's not by far the majority of people, but there's been an increase in that over the years. I think folks are looking for answers and help, and how can I have a lawn that is not turf grass? So, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
And what does that mean in reality, not just as as an ideological concept? And I think Mitchell is excellent at having that conversation in a very balanced way. Oh, you can use these types of herbicide products or not, or you can use these ground covers or not, but here's, the reality of the situation, so that it's a practical decision and not just a philosophical
I
conversation.
think folks, I want people to make decisions based on information and not necessarily on emotion, not because somebody has scared you, into doing something, but because it's best for you, best for your location, best for your set of circumstances. I mean, that's fine if you want to have, if you just want to have ground covers, you want to have sedges and so on. In a lot of places, you're better off to do that. But you say, okay, well, what? I don't want grass. I can't grow grass, so I want to do this. This stuff costs too much. It costs too much to establish it and do what I do. I don't know. I still haven't figured that part out yet. There's that segment that, regardless of the options out there, there's always a fault with them, and they can't settle on something.
Well, and I think too, Mitchell, there's Natalie, you alluded to this also. It all sounds really good in concept, right?
Mhm.
And then like actually seeing what the finished product might look like when implemented on your yard, those two things might not align perfectly, right? Once you see what it looks like and go beyond the theoretical. And there's just an ever-growing need for scientific communication from good sources that's based on real stuff. And I think that that's something that all four of us have really kind of tried to champion and move forward. And I'll use this as a segue. We had a question from someone in the audience about where they can get some good scientific information like the Welcome Home Pub.
Yeah, so I guess I can start with this and you guys can fill in some gaps. So we have a few places certainly where we can get information from UT. So UT Extension has its own website where we house publications that are produced by specialists across UTIA. We also have concentrated a lot of our more horticulture specific resources to UT Hort. And Natalie, I don't know if we can maybe share that in the chat, that link in the chat, but it's a great website. You want to talk a little bit about, you guys just redid that website, and I don't want to step on your toes there. So
yeah. So the uthort.com website is really tailored towards a homeowner type of audience. And the goal is to have your lawn, your landscape, your garden, all those resources in one spot. And that way, there aren't 300 resources, but there's the 5 that we know are the most useful for our region. And so, we have a variety of the new turfgrass and weed control resources, but also home, lawn, and garden. And then what we try to do is say, oh, are you a turfgrass professional or are you a landscape professional? Well, then we'll have links to other sites that are more the commercial and the professional resources that some of the rest of the crew focus on.
And I think, if you're listening to this and let's say you're a pesticide applicator and you treat lawns, I think in the world that we live in today, it would really benefit you to familiarize yourself with some of these resources, even if you know the information, so that you can go to a potential new homeowner or new client and talk about how the programs that you would be providing for them on their property are based in this real science from the University of Tennessee. Because the reality is, I mean, this might not be popular to say, is that you don't have to have a whole lot of structure to be a lawn care company today. I've heard the joke made, you can have a pickup truck and a mower and you're a lawn care company. And I think like if you can really take some of these documents to kind of communicate in a professional way that you're going to implement programs that are best suited for that property that are based on replicated research. I think that's going to not only improve your professionalism, but the whole professionalism of the industry. And, we've gone so far as an extension service to develop a program, the Certified Lawn Care Professional Program. That's a self-paced online initiative to go through kind of the nuts and bolts, the fundamentals of managing turfgrass, particularly in a lawn setting, so that at the end you could have a certificate from UT Extension that you're a certified lawn care professional. And I think that not only helps you as the business owner, or maybe the lead of that business, but it can also help as you hire new people. Because I mean, I'll tell a story. I won't name the lawn care company, but I had a large lawn care company come to my front door, and they wanted to sell me a lawn care program, and I played along and didn't tell them who I was or what I do for a living. And let the individual go through their spiel about what applications they were going to make and when they were going to make them. And I asked some follow-up questions that they were unable to answer about why they were selecting the products that they were selecting for my yard. And it led to a larger conversation about, well, this person didn't have any training in agriculture of any kind. And I don't think that's all that atypical, right? So if you have that training and you're coming to sessions like this to stay certified and get the most current knowledge, you want to promote that you're doing that, because that's going to separate you from the group.
And I want to bring us full circle a little bit here and mention too that several of our county agents have excellent in-person programming as well to provide continuing education. And Mitchell, if you want to talk about the Middle Tennessee short course in particular and some of the others that you run, they're some of the biggest that I speak out in the state.
Here in Middle Tennessee, we've got a group of agents, I guess, from 6, 7 counties, and been doing it, oh gosh, 17, 16, 17, 18 years now. Middle Tennessee Landscape and Grounds Management Short Course. It's early January every year. Historically, it's held at the Williamson County Ag Expo Park there in Franklin. 2-day event. It includes information speakers from the tree care industry. So arborists can that are looking for arborist certification points, recertification points, they get some value from it. Lawn and landscape service operators, parks and rec people. Typically you can get roughly 10 continuing education credits from this 2-day event there. And our participation has been 200 odd here for the last several years. Offer it both as in person as well as a Zoom opportunity to participate. And then here in Rutherford County, we started, like I said, I think 22 years ago, having just a single in-person seminar for lawn and landscape service operators. And we've expanded that based on just recommendations from some of those people. There's other times in the year, and this would be like a February, late January, February timeframe would do that, middle of February. And then, but, there are other times in the year when we're a little bit slower, especially, lawn care folks, that August time, we're not really out overseeing a whole lot, and maybe mowing is slowed down some. Might be a good time. So we started adding a second session, and we've kind of, did that in that late summertime for a while, and then sort of transitioned over into a late fall time frame. In November. And so we, typically we'll have, here in the county, 160 or so come through both those sessions, those 2 sessions combined on a yearly basis. So, we've reached a lot of people and given some an opportunity to have some education, have some training, and also to maintain that certification. For some folks, that I think is, for whatever reason, has been a challenge to keep their recertification, or to keep their certifications valid by getting enough recertification credit. And the only way to do that is by attending an approved school or approved training. And so we're able to offer those. And I think that, I don't know anybody that provides a better training than we do. And we being Extension, not Rutherford County per se, or not the Green Team, the Middle Tennessee Landscape, but just Extension. It's a great resource, it's a great source of that information, of that training, because of it's all based on science. It's real, and it's not a one and done thing. It's been shown to work time and time and time again.
And we have these programs across the state throughout the year. So Jim and I both get invited to speak typically at about 5 of these per year. So we have one here in Knox County that's put on by Lee Rumble. We have one in Chattanooga that's put on by our Hamilton County agent, Haley Treadway. Celeste puts on a landscape review in Jackson. Joe puts on a couple of programs a year in Memphis. So we have several of these initiatives across the state where many of the same specialists are engaged. So there's some consistency of information provided. It's a great opportunity for you to come and get to know your county extension agent and to get to know some of these specialists that even if you're in Memphis and they're based, we're based here in Knoxville, we'll travel out to go to those programs. And so it gives us an opportunity to meet stakeholders across the state. We've got an online program that we're launching this summer for focused on community sports turf and municipal turf managers. And then, we as a program offer several things throughout the year as well. And, Jim, you and I also work very closely with the Tennessee Turfgrass Association and Tennessee Golf Course Superintendents Association. So a lot of really good opportunities for professional training, continuing education across the state. If you're ever unsure of where to find that, you just reach out to any one of us and we'll point you in the right direction.
And for those of you who might not be in Tennessee, I mean, we have folks join Turf Tuesdays from states all over the country. We have individuals from as far as Hawaii. So if you're up this early in Hawaii, aloha. Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, Michigan, Texas, South Carolina, Pennsylvania. Mitchell alluded to this in kind of his opening remarks that there's a land-grant university in every state. Right. And the mission of a land-grant university is to kind of deliver information through the extension arm that we've spent so much time talking about in today's session. And, you might be in a state where you don't have an ag agent like Mitchell in every county, but you certainly have an extension enterprise. Right. And that might be vary in scale based on the size of the university and where you're located. But, the message here today, we've talked a lot about Tennessee resources, but if you're in Georgia, there's a robust extension program in Georgia, and you can find your Georgia County Extension agent or your Georgia Extension specialist to try to help you through problems in Georgia. And the same would be true in Mississippi or Kentucky or Texas or South Carolina, you name it. It's a kind of one of the central kind of parts of the land grant mission, if you will.
And Jim, you and I know most of those people too. So even if you're in another state and you don't know who that person is, we could probably help you with that as well. Sorry, Natalie.
That's correct.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think that one of the cool things that we've really looped around and talked about from different angles in the last 5 or so minutes is that, in this conversation with Mitchell, we've talking about how sometimes what we talk about has changed, who we're teaching, with movement. But I think that how we're teaching has also changed, and that what we're really trying to do is, yes, have high quality online resources, but not to replace the great local or the great in your state people, but to work synergistically. And and Mitchell has some of the best in-person programming in the state, but also was a part of the online resources. So to me, it's the synergy, not that we're trying to move away from anything, but that we're trying to make sure we have multiple resources to hit people in different geographic and different times of year and with different content.
And I think, just speaking for county agents, I sure haven't been elected to be their spokesperson, but I do think that, most any county, I'd say that every county agent in Tennessee would welcome the opportunity, to have, a conversation with any of their clientele, person to person. And, that they welcome the chance to establish a relationship. When you feel, the customer, the citizen out there, when they feel comfortable enough and having confidence enough, in you to call and to ask you. I mean, because in the day of Google, oh boy, that's used a lot, and with artificial intelligence now, and boy, sometimes you're not sure who you're talking to, I guess. And it's amazing what it can do. But it's still so often I get calls. Yesterday, for example, I spoke with a lady on the phone, and we have Googled this, and here's what we think the problem is, but we wanted to talk to you, to ask somebody in person, and I think that's a great value, that folks have confidence enough in you to do that. And And again, I think most any county would welcome the opportunity to establish those relationships with that clientele so that they are comfortable and confident in coming to you to try to seek information. If I don't know it, then I've got these folks here that I can fall back on, that they're supporting me, and they're supporting the folks in Williamson and Wilson and all the other counties in the state.
For sure.
Oh,
go ahead, Becky.
I was just gonna say, I was just gonna piggyback off of this and say that, I've been an extension specialist now across 2 states for about 7 years, and working with county agents is by far one of the most rewarding parts of my job. And, we have a diverse audience that joins this chat. The other thing that I would just kind of add is that we have a lot of agents that may specialize in pond management, or agents that are certified arborists. We have 3 of those across Tennessee. We have agents that have a lot of expertise in ornamentals. So, if you're a golf course superintendent listening to this in Tennessee, we may have agents that are going to be great resources for other challenges that you may come across at your facility. So, please just keep that in mind. And, happy to share any resources. And Mitchell, I really am glad you were able to join us today. I just want to tell you that working with you has been a real pleasure since I started my job here. And I'm glad that you're going to stick around at least a little bit after you retire, because it's going to make things a lot more fun. So
those are very kind words. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Just transitioning off of those nice sentiments, I feel the exact same way, Mitchell. I've worked here for 17 years, going on 18 in August, and it's been a pleasure to work with you and all your programming and whether it's your events in Rutherford County or the Middle Tennessee short course that goes on in January, or even just site visits with you, me, and our old friend Dr. Samples. It's always been enjoyable. And I've got on the screen, because I've got a little bit of a kind of a non-turf related question for Mitchell before we conclude here at 12:30, but to include the kind of the turf business. On the screen, what you're seeing for our superintendent friends, this is your GCSAA Education Point event approval code. This has nothing to do with pesticide credits in any state. Let me repeat that. This has nothing to do with pesticide credits. But if you are a superintendent, you want your CEU, you want to log this code right here where it says event approval code into the GCSAA website, so you can get your CEUs for participating in today's session. If for some reason you lose the code, you can email me. I keep all these as a backup, and I can send you that code via email. So the last thing I wanted to just jump on, and we do have a question here in the Q&A box too, but I'm going to get my question in before we run out of time, Mitchell. A career in extension comes with lots of stories, right? I've tried to get Dr. Samples to write a book about his career in extension. I told him he should title it "A View from My Buick" for all the road miles he logged over the years. But anyway, you have been at this a long time, and I know you also have a little bit of a penchant for storytelling, whether it's competitive or just for the fun of telling a story. Can you think back, like, what do you think is your best extension story?
Oh, well, I did, ask some unusual questions. In all seriousness, this individual, the lady, she called, and she wanted to know if it was illegal to grow Kentucky bluegrass in Tennessee, because she had asked the folks she worked with tell her that it was, and she was interested in trying to grow some, but she wanted to verify that it was legal for her to do that. So yeah, that was kind of an interesting question, I thought. And I don't know, as far as those kind of stories. Gosh, there was an instance where a lady, she didn't have an irrigation system, and it was hot, dry weather, and the grass was turning brown. And she said, "Well, why is the grass turning brown?" "Well, it's because it needs to drink of water and it's hot. That's why the grass is turning brown." She said, "Well, my neighbor's not turning brown." "Well, okay, they got a little deeper soil than you have. Maybe they're able to water it." "Well, I want theirs to look just as bad as mine." And that was, and you run into that sometimes. it's I want it. I don't mind. I don't want mine to look any worse than everybody else's. I want theirs to look just as bad as mine. I had a fellow one time say, "Man, I always look forward to July and August every year," and I thought, why? Well, because it's so miserable. It's hot. And I said, well, so what's the benefit of this? It's because everybody's yard looks just as bad as mine. That was the sentiment right there they were looking for. Yeah, there's been a lot of good experiences.
Yeah, well, you'll have to catalog them all one day. Maybe you can write a view from my Buick or whatever it is that you drive these days, and put it together in a memoir, if you will, of the stories and a career working in UT Extension.
Think about that.
We'll send our camera woman to
There you
capture
go.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, but
Well,
if you wait for me to ride it, that'll take a long darn time.
yeah, we can do Anna Duncan, our certified programs coordinator, who is the one who is very skillful of all of us with the videos and video editing. I need to give her kudos for all the POA videos that she produces for me that go on our YouTube channel. She could do it as a vlog, Mitchell. It'd be fun.
Yeah, might do my take on the boy from Mississippi, Soggy Sweat, Noah Sweat, who was a representative there in Mississippi from 47 to 52. He did his whiskey speech. Well, I wrote one about home lawns, kind of the same, using that as a pattern. So that might be something to blog one time. I don't know.
We need to make that happen. Maybe May 2nd, right? Like the day after you're officially retired. We'll get it started.
Yeah, I'm open for that. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's leave it there, Mitchell. Thank you for your time and everything that you've done for UT Extension over your career and your time with us today. Sincerely appreciate it. We've had some folks put in the questions already that really enjoyed this being a very focused kind of homeowner, home lawn Turf Tuesday. I don't think we've done any of those in the 5 years that we've been doing this. So I think your comments really hit home with the audience, and wish you the best in your retirement.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you all for your support.
And until next time, we'll be back in May for our next Turf Tuesday. But until then, enjoy the rest of your day.